So Prynhawn Pawb, good afternoon everyone, and welcome to WEN at 10, our celebration of our 10th anniversary. And I'm so excited to be here today with you all, and so excited to be able to shortly introduce some incredible women for our WEN at 10 celebrations. We've got women who have been involved with WEN from the very start of our journey, and women who've really been impacted by the work that WEN has done and have been along with us, holding our hands, supporting us, and helping us make the impact that we want to have. So today's about three things really. We're saying happy birthday to WEN. We're also wanting to celebrate what we've achieved with the help of our amazing members, all of you who are listening. And we also want to look forward to the impact we're going to make over the next 10 years and to launch our fundraising campaign, WEN at 10. So first of all, as I said, we're going to hear from some really inspirational women who've shared our journey with us so far. And I think they're really going to bring to life the work that WEN has done over the first 10 years of our lives and show what it really means to be a WEN member too. And then we'll also hear from the brilliant Jess Fishlock MBE, the international footballer, and she's going to be in conversation with Laura McAllister. So please do save up your questions for that section and put your questions in the Q&A function when we come to the Laura and Jess chat. Then the third part of the day, the afternoon, will be our actual AGM when we look back and again look forward to our next 5 years. So I am delighted to introduce our first speaker, the brilliant Jane Hutt, MS, the Minister for Social Justice. She has been involved in our journey right from the start of WEN Wales and has been a brilliant supporter of women's rights. She's going to look back at our key achievements and also look forward to our future. So over to you, Minister.
Diolch yn fawr, Catherine. Rwy'n falch iawn I fod gyda hi, Prynhawn. I'm really pleased to be with you this afternoon. I'm squeezing it in with plenary sessions and everything, but it's great to be here at the start. Really a great pleasure to celebrate the 10th anniversary of WEN Wales. It feels as though you've been here forever, but 10 years, so what can you achieve? You've done so much in this decade, so much more to come. So can I just start by congratulating everyone who's been involved, setting up the organisation, founders, Kay and Kirsty we're going to hear from, but staff, trustees, members, crucially, because you actually are important as a membership organisation of women from across Wales and all the organisations. I always say to Catherine, you're representing powerful voices from women, and you've all played an important role to ensure WEN Wales' continued success in bringing women together across Wales and amplifying those voices. Very packed afternoon, and I'm only going to be saying a few words, but I'm just brilliant speakers you've got all afternoon. I wish I was spending the time with you, but you'll be looking at the history of WEN Wales, as you say, current work and what the future holds. But I think our recent history has seen all of us live through the most extraordinary times, and WEN Wales has played an important part in shaping how the Welsh Government has worked to ensure women are supported through the pandemic and centred in our recovery. And in fact, the WEN Wales Coalition has provided very valuable advice and information to Welsh Government ministers, not just to myself, as we worked through the pandemic. And nearly 1,000 people I note have taken part in the WEN cafes undertaken. I'm sure that many of you here today have been involved in those. I've taken part in a couple myself. You've all contributed your knowledge and expertise to the response to COVID-19, including, most importantly, consideration of the impact of the pandemic on disabled women, Black, Asian and minority ethnic women, LGBTQ+ women, and looked at women's health, caring responsibilities and housing. And I think, when I spoke, perhaps it was last year, I can't remember, Catherine, but I did make this point about the amazing role that women have played as women scientists, giving the evidence across, globally, but also in Wales. And I've recognised that as chair of the diversity in STEM, particularly on focusing the contributions of those women. But we have faced challenges which would have been unthinkable just 2 years ago throughout the pandemic. But you have helped us, WEN Wales, and all you represent and all your membership, feeding in and giving us that all-important advice. I want to just focus for a couple of minutes on the importance of your mentoring programme, the WEN Wales mentoring programme. I know it's going to be, I can see mentors speaking and it's mentees as well. It's going to be, it's a huge feature of what you have achieved, because I've been part of it as well. I've been a mentor, and of course you learn so much by being a mentor, learning from your mentees so that you become the mentee and they become the mentor. But hearing firsthand the real life experiences and barriers which women still face in Wales, and you've got to do that by being with people with that experience, listening and learning from them. It's been a grounding learning experience for me, and every woman I've worked with has inspired and strengthened my resolve to drive forward change. And of course, you know, that's why I'm in politics. That's why I'm so fortunate to have the opportunity to use my influence to take forward and learn from those women and take action. But if you look at the mentoring scheme, it's given diverse women from across Wales skills, confidence to step into public service, to become leaders. I'm delighted that so many of the mentees have taken that important first step into public life, and excited that they represent the future of Wales. And it's been possible to do this virtually. I'll never forget the coming together virtually at the end of the last scheme, when we were all together and a few had their glasses of wine to celebrate their achievements. We did it virtually. We got everyone together. You did. So this year, WEN Wales is building on its legacy to lead the All Wales Equal Power, Equal Voice mentoring scheme in collaboration with East Disability Wales and Stonewall Cymru. And I think this scheme, which is part funded by the Welsh Government, is so important because it will help to ensure that many more people from underserved and underrepresented communities will be supported to move into public life. And I do think this programme will help us to achieve the changes that we all want to see in relation to leadership and representation within Wales, because it will help develop the skills, the expertise, potential and confidence, so important, the confidence of talented and diverse individuals from across Wales, from school governors to national government. You can do it. I need to see diversity, inclusion and equality amongst our leaders and decision makers. And it's very much in line with our quality and diversity strategy, where we seek to ensure that Wales is run by people who are Welsh, who are the people of Wales. Running Wales must reflect Wales. And also just to recognise that leadership and visibility has been so important. And I think many of us actually were together when we spoke at the unveiling of the monumental Welsh women's first statue of Betty Campbell, the first black head teacher in Wales. And the fact that this was so importantly organised, selected, showcased on TV, those 5 women, and a public vote led to the incredible, inspiring statue of Betty Campbell being unveiled in the centre of Cardiff in September. I think that's made a huge impact, and we will all celebrate that today. So we can't claim to have achieved gender equality. We mustn't forget to celebrate achievements along the way. We must continue on our work towards equality by making change happen. And I've outlined a few projects. They're bringing about positive change for women and girls across Wales. And I know that we have more to do. I'm very pleased that in your press statement for today, you recognise that we have committed in our programme for government to incorporate the United Nations Convention on the elimination of all forms of discrimination against women, CEDAW. And of course, every time I meet with WEN Wales, they ask me for progress on that aim. It's now firmly embedded in our programme for government. And also just to alert you to something that's coming forward very shortly in the next few weeks, the next stage of implementing our Violence Against Women, Domestic Abuse and Sexual Violence Act by a new consultation for the next 5 years, which will be extending from tackling violence against women in the home to the street and the workplace, to public places, and that's going to be very important in terms of the focus on violence against women. That is so sadly still so much with us today, and we will work together. I know, and WEN Wales will respond, and all the organisations, to the consultation that's coming up shortly. So we have a lot more work to do. It's going to be great, I'm sure, to hear Jess and Laura speaking later on. I'm going to have that pleasure, but I will be listening to the statement by the Counsel General, where he will be formally confirming the fact that Laura McAllister is the co-chair with Rowan Williams of that all-important independent commission looking at our future prospects in Wales. So I have got to leave you now. I hope I haven't overstepped my time with you, but it's been an absolute pleasure to work with you, to support you, to be held to account by you as well, which I will expect of you from this day forward, as you would expect, but also out of that to make the change that we know is so important for women in Wales. And if we make that change for women, we make it for everybody. Diolch yn fawr. Thank you very much. Hope it goes well.
Diolch yn fawr, Minister. Thank you very much, Jane Hutt, Minister for Social Justice. We really appreciate your support. Thank you. So I'm delighted now to welcome our next speaker, who is Kay Richmond. Kay Richmond was one of the founders of WEN Wales, and we are now passing over to her.
Thank you very much, Catherine. It's a great pleasure, obviously, to be with you today, seeing something which was a twinkle in some of our eyes 10 years ago, still going strong and developing. So that's absolutely excellent, and good to hear the things that Jane Hutt has mentioned about introducing CEDAW and other things in Wales. It's good to be living in a country that takes the lead on things when appropriate, and nothing could be more appropriate than that. But just to reflect a little on why. I've been a seroptimist. Sorry for those of you who don't know seroptimism, but what it means is an organisation seeking to help women and girls be the best they can be for many years. And it was the seroptimists who introduced me to the Welsh National Coalition, Women's National Coalition. I'll get the title right eventually. And I also joined in with Kirsty at the Institute of Welsh Affairs, and that was where I first met Laura. It was a big shock and disappointment to all of us when the governments, and I do use the plural, withdrew funding for the National Coalition. And I suggested to Kirsty that maybe we could do something in Wales which sought to build on that experience of that body and take forward the work that is so needed. I was delighted that Kirsty and Adele and I got our heads together and managed to get WEN started. Sorry, I'm keeping my eye on the time, as you can see. But, sorry, these things never stop when you want them to, do they?
Don't worry at all.
There we go, it's gone. But it's what can we do for the future? And the one thing that I'm sorry we haven't managed to do is to gain UN recognition through the Economic and Social Council, because that does give you a route into a very important body for women worldwide, including women in Wales. And as you know, Wales Assembly of Women is accredited by ECOSOC. Perhaps that's something we can look to work more closely together in the future, because without being accredited, you can't attend the Commission on the Status of Women each year in March. And I think that would be such a good step forward for WEN. So I leave you with that thought.
Diolch yn fawr, Kay. Thank you very much. It's great to hear about why we were founded and a challenge there for our future. Thank you. So now I'd really love to invite our next co-founder, I guess I should say, of WEN Wales, Kirsty Davies-Warner, who's going to say a few words. Over to Kirsty.
Hello, hi, thank you. I'm really pleased to be invited to speak today, and I share Kay's pleasure. It's really nice to see you on screen, Kay. I can't believe that WEN is 10 years old, and when we set up WEN, as Kay's alluded to, is because we felt that there was no vehicle in place to make sure that women's voices were being heard at the heart of decision making in the design of services which affected them, but also that we weren't being represented in the arenas that we needed to be. WEN has been extremely lucky over the years to have the support of some amazing women in its inception and making it all the way to 10. And you've already heard from Kay, who was such an amazing force in that space, who I'm forever indebted to. But as Kay has, I also must mention Adele Baumgart, who shortly after inception was co-chair of WEN, who has been a tremendous supporter of the work and of me, and really helped us to professionalize WEN and get us into the spaces that we needed to be in the early days. And you'll know that since then, WEN has really taken off. My personal favourite bits are the manifesto work and the scorecard work that was done with RhCM Cymru. And WEN has never been afraid to deliver some quite bold and challenging messages and speaking truth to power. And that's something that makes me very happy. That WEN has gone from that place to this organisation in just 10 years is amazing to me, and it remains one of my proudest achievements, actually. I work for Welsh Government now, and I hear the name WEN Wales really frequently, like every other day, and it really makes me proud. And since then, WEN has obviously grown and has professional staff who are doing an amazing job of holding decision makers to account. But WEN's special place in my heart is because for a long time there was very little money and many hurdles, and the solidarity between women was what kept it going until it was on its feet. And this was tricksy at times, as you might imagine, but it's given me a fantastic experience that I can recount in job interviews as an example of negotiation and dealing with stakeholders with competing interests. But the most enduring lesson has been for me that in solidarity we can do anything, and that barriers do tend to shatter when we speak together and hold each other up and clear the path for each other. As well at working at Welsh Government, I'm also a coach, and I work exclusively with women, and I'm getting increasingly worried about what the recent crisis has done to the confidence of women. It's brought into sharp focus, as you'll all know here, the multifaceted burden on women who are more likely to be low paid, caring for children and elderly, be key workers, and to have their income fall, and to be dependent on public services which have been so heavily impacted. And the least rewarded financially, as we'll know. And what worries me is that women aren't blind to these inequalities, and we live in a system that doesn't do a great job of hiding its hostility towards us. And we've seen in the media what happens to women who question the status quo. We've seen how women are treated in the justice system, and how women are asked to be vigilant to make sure that they're not abused by men. And then when women struggle to say no or to claim space, society looks at women as though it's their individual fault. And I feel really passionately about this, and that's why I'm so pleased that WEN is celebrating this anniversary, and I think why we need organisations like this now more than ever. And just a massive thank you from me to all of you who continue to make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kirsty. That was lovely to hear more about the early days. Thank you for the shout out to Adele, who couldn't be with us today, but we have been in contact with her too, because yes, we owe all three of you a huge debt. So thank you very much. I'd now like to introduce the wonderful Professor Meena Upadhyaya, OBE. She's a former trustee of WEN Wales, a medical geneticist, and one of WEN's 100 Welsh women. So over to you, Meena.
Thank you very much, Catherine. It is a pleasure to join the celebration of WEN's 10th anniversary. I was elected to be WEN's trustee in 2013, and undoubtedly I acquired tremendous knowledge on pressing issues that women continue to face. WEN's vision on gender non-discrimination and equal opportunity and authority for men and women has always resonated with me. When I first joined, WEN was focusing on expanding the membership database, and the membership figure at that time was in 3 digits. Now, WEN has astonishing membership of over 35,000. So well done, WEN. WEN has continued its involvement with CEDAW, as we heard earlier, and it has continued to connect, campaign, and make a difference as member of the UK's Joint Committee on Women. I continue to engage with WEN after I stepped down, and it was a great pleasure as well as an honor to be a mentor for WEN mentoring scheme, and I had the opportunity of mentoring a wonderful, enthusiastic mentee who is attending this webinar. I'm grateful to WEN for including me amongst 100 Welsh women to mark the centenary of Representation of People Act 1918. I was also honored to be a part of the panel of experts who were involved in the selection of 5 women from the list of 50 Welsh women for the Monumental Welsh Women. These 5 women were then put forward for public vote for the Hidden Heroines by the BBC. And as you know, formidable Betty Campbell was voted for the first statue. And it is an amazing monument inspiring countless women and girls in Wales. WEN also works with purple plaques, which recognize remarkable women and award them with a purple plaque. It is heartening that WEN has gone from strength to strength and is currently involved in a range of additional activities. To name a few: International Network, Stopping Violence Against Women, the Equal Right to Health and Finance, and the Value of Care work. I pay tribute to WEN for being an exemplary organization and wish them all the best for its future. Thank you.
Oh, that's wonderful. If we were all in a theatre together or something, we'd all be clapping each other, and it feels really strange. This is all very silent, but thank you, Meena, and thank you for all our speakers so far. It's just brilliant. It's so heartening and motivating for us all as a team to hear about how far we've come and how much our work is appreciated. So onwards now, please, to Sarah Rees, who is a former chair of WEN Wales and is now CEO of RhCM Cymru. Sarah.
Hi, and thank you. It's lovely to be picking up the baton from my friend Meena. It's a real honour to get the chance to speak to you all as we celebrate 10 years of WEN Wales. Times have really changed over this last decade for women, with some amazing highs, but we still have so much work to do. At the time I stood for the role of chair in 2013, I was 5 months pregnant, and I was inspired to show other women that you can juggle a senior position with motherhood. But I had a lot to learn. Whilst I was battling with sleepless nights and breastfeeding, I was made redundant from a job that I loved. And the day that that letter dropped on my doorstep when my daughter was less than 12 weeks old was devastating. But it was WEN who saved me from feelings of hurt and anger that could have consumed me and ruined such a special time in my life. I'll forever be indebted to Eleanor Davies and the members of the WEN board who listened, advised, cared and supported me. As the work part of my life came crashing down, it was WEN that was there to lift me up. And I learned that you could alternate interviews for a WEN director with pumping breast milk, and that my granny with Parkinson's could take care of my daughter so that I could go to Welsh Government to finalise our first large funding bid. And what I'm trying to say is that when we empower one woman, we empower an entire community, because empowered women empower women. Each step that I took was a tiny ripple on the pond of change that WEN has created for all women across Wales. WEN is much more than a network. It sits at the core of a sisterhood, one that's louder and stronger and more successful when we all come together. I wanted to set everyone a challenge. we have the power to make change for women, and it's my privilege to use my platform to speak for other women who are at the coalface of gender inequality. I wanted to ask you to commit to taking one action that will make positive steps to enshrine the rights of women in Wales and across the world. So as you take a moment to consider what your change will be, I want to share some inspiration. You can shop mindfully and sustainably and ethically, and I'm pleased to announce that profits from these beautiful and locally made decorations will go to Women Seeking Sanctuary Advocacy Group, who support asylum seeker and refugee women here in Cardiff. Whilst we've regained the freedom to watch sports or to grab a beer with our pals, women giving birth across Wales still have limited visiting rights. In Cwmtaf Morgannwg Health Board, for example, no visitors at all are allowed on postnatal or antenatal wards. That means that 2 hours after giving birth, your birth partner has to leave and you're on your own with your newborn until you go home. You could ask our Health Minister, Eluned Morgan, to act on change for that. This Saturday is Transgender Day of Remembrance. The Welsh Trans Alliance and Pride Cymru will be hosting a vigil on the Senate steps at 2:30, and you could turn up to this event and show your support and be allies to our trans community. So please do take a moment, share in the comments or on social media what your action will be. And thank you, especially to Catherine and all the team behind the scenes at WEN Wales. It's great for us to celebrate, to thank you, and all take small actions for gender equality, because together we make real change. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you so much. That was brilliant, and so good to remind us that we all do, we all hold power ourselves, and we can all take action to make things better for others. So thank you for that reminder. And now on to our next speaker, the fantastic Auriol Miller, who has been a mentor on the WEN mentoring scheme and is director of the Institute of Welsh Affairs. Auriol.
Diolch, thanks very much indeed, Catherine, and really great to be with you all here today. It's a real honour to be asked to reflect on WEN and the contribution that you've made, that you are making, and that you will continue to make into the future in terms of gender equality. I've been involved with WEN for about half of these first 10 years. So I want to talk first, please, about why mentoring future leaders really matters to me, and then we're going to go on a bit of a voyage into the future. I took up my first leadership role at the age of 29 in rather unusual circumstances. I was working in Burundi in Central Africa in the middle of an ongoing civil war, and my boss had had a series of death threats made against her and her young family. So she left quickly and I was handed the keys. I learned on the job, running an organisation with 140 staff, seeking out and finding my own mentors. All men, a good 15 to 20 years older than me, who had the networks and the confidence that I didn't. They were very generous with their time and support and have remained friends ever since. And I've always really valued those relationships, and I made a really early decision to pay that kindness forward whenever I could. So mentoring colleagues from Burundi, Congo, Sudan, Russia, and now Wales, supporting them to work on gender inequalities in all these countries, watching their careers go on to flourish and watching them become mentors to others has been a massive privilege of all the leadership roles that I've had. So I'm really grateful to WEN for the opportunity to carry on mentoring, and I'm really looking forward to learning from Bethan too this year. Now I want to think you to think yourselves a bit further into the future. Imagine it's 2031. Okay, we're in 2031. More women than ever before have the opportunity and the resources to develop and sustain meaningful careers. Construction and technology are the hot new career choices for girls leaving school or women wishing to retrain. Whether it's being skilled up to install or maintain electric vehicle charging points, or advising homeowners on how to retrofit their homes to reduce the demand for energy and keep fuel bills down, particularly in more deprived areas, or educate the next generation as to the best qualifications and skills to shape their own career in Wales's particular forte, marine energy, women of all ages in places right across Wales are enjoying the certainty of a secure financial future. Whether they work, care, or balance the two, as so many of us have to do, their choices and roles are respected, informed by evidence and supported by sound advice that they can access digitally and with confidence. Over the past 5 years or so, more men have been applying to be carers and teachers, because not only is it a badge of honour post-COVID, but it comes with status and a salary and conditions to match. Shared parental leave has been reformed. Childcare is simple and much more affordable to access. Public transport has been revolutionised too, as have active travel routes, and women can build the exercise that makes them feel good into their daily routines. Their networks have changed and they look and feel totally different, much more multi-generational and multinational, enriched with the rich personal and professional life experiences from people all over the world who've chosen to make Wales their home because of the emphasis on things that really matter: our loved ones' well-being and our sense of being part of a global community, knowing that Wales offers a safe and welcoming haven to people fleeing conflict and persecution across the world. Women are using these social and professional networks not only to support the people and places they care about, but to boost the Welsh economy too, enabling us to retain these economic, environmental and social benefits in Wales. Political ambition is something to be admired, you'd believe it, because the Senedd is a place for talent, and the battle to be the first woman FM was keenly fought, closely watched by the media in Wales and elsewhere. Job share MSs are entering their second term. Parliamentary scrutiny has significantly improved now that with an expanded Senedd of 90, backbenchers have the strength and depth to focus on just one committee, not 3. The expertise and insights of women who have lived experience of race, migration, disability or poverty is influencing lawmakers' understanding of the impact of their decisions on people's daily lives. Not only that, but half of all political leaders at every level in Wales are women, thanks to the hard yards of campaigning put in a decade ago by a partnership that crossed boundaries and political interests. This is what we have to work for: a future where women's contribution is respected and valued wherever and however it is made. This is why WEN Wales matters now, and this is why we will continue to matter in the future. Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you, Auriol. That was brilliant. I love that. I love the sound of that vision. That's a vision that I think we can all buy into and then we all want to see. And I really love the way you put that. Thank you so much. It's exactly what we're fighting for. It's exactly why we're here. Brilliant. So now I'd love to introduce the brilliant Shereen Williams, who is also a mentor and is the CEO of the Local Democracy and Boundary Commission of Wales, so has been incredibly busy of late. Shereen, over to you.
Thank you. Firstly, Pembrey Capis and Slamat Hari Jadi to WEN Wales. I think it's always a hard act to follow Auriol, and I like this, what she wishes for the future, that increase in the Senedd membership. So I hope when that does happen, the FM and his team gives us a call at the Local Democracy and Boundary Commission for Wales to do some of that work with expansion. One of the reasons why I wanted to share my thoughts about mentoring today is because I've been very lucky in my life that when I was growing up, my first mentor was my mother. She's incredibly successful in her career, and I've always been lucky to have somebody at home that I could discuss my life options with, my choices, and have somebody to give me feedback and guidance and mentoring in that way. And one thing she taught me growing up was the importance of bringing along others with you, and the importance of giving back and finding a way to open up those doors, those barriers that were in place for when she was growing up. She made a point of breaking them down so her daughter could go through those doors without those barriers in place. We talk a lot about the benefits that mentoring can bring to mentees, but we rarely actually talk about the benefit that mentoring can bring to mentors. One of the first experience I had of my leadership journey was when I was actually in Wales. And when I started working in local government, and I went to lots of meeting rooms where the leadership was heavily male. Middle-aged white men, there was barely any women, and there weren't, actually, I've never gotten into a room in my career during local government of women who looked like me, women that I could identify with on different levels. I was, I don't want to commit disservice to the men that supported me. I've been very lucky to also work with very good male leaders who supported me and mentored me throughout my journey. But there were some things that they would never face simply because they happened to be men. I benefited greatly from having a female mentor in my previous role. And it was actually seeing her leadership style, the way she dealt with challenges, was what inspired me to take the next step in my career. And she also said that, you don't have to be masculine to be a good leader. There's so many what we would consider possibly feminine traits, like compassion, kindness, etc., which actually should be leadership values, full stop, that work well. For those who are thinking about becoming mentors or signing up for mentors for the next program, one of the things I read this morning was I was thinking about what can I say about mentoring? I saw a line that said, actually, the best way to learn is to teach. And I think mentoring gives you a great opportunity to teach or impart your skills to this next generation of leaders, to nurture those women. It expands your own skill set. It exposes you to new perspectives. I have had, a wonderful experience mentoring my WEN mentee last year. In fact, we've moved on from our mentor-mentee relationship to becoming friends now. And recently I had lunch with her and I actually spoke to her about a possible public appointment opportunity for myself, because that was an area of expertise she had. So it's interesting how the network and the relationship changes. And my wish for the future, just like Auriol, is a leadership that represents us all. I have a mixed race stepdaughter who's visibly Muslim, who is half Pakistani, half European. I want her to be able to look at the Senate. I want her to be able to look at her local leadership and say, actually, I can see somebody in there that looks like me. And if I want to go down that route, that's something that I can, because my stepmom, my mum, my aunt, etc., these wonderful women of the previous generation have helped broken down those barriers for me. So to WEN and the team at WEN Wales, thank you for everything you've been doing for us for the past 10 years. And I cannot wait to see what you do for the next 10. Diolch.
Thank you, Shereen. Thank you. That was wonderful. And absolutely, mentoring is so important. Mentors have been also really important to me in my life. And we're really excited that the Equal Power, Equal Voice mentoring scheme will be launching on December the 9th, and you're all invited. I'll get my little plug in. So now I'd really love to introduce our next speaker, who is Shavanah. Also has been a mentor and all-around brilliant woman. She's the General Secretary of Wales TUC. Shavanah.
Thank you, Catherine. Firstly, my sincere thanks to you and the team for WEN for making sure that women from all walks of life actually have a very safe and inclusive and an actually accessible way of accessing high quality training, mentoring, and all the support that you provide to build up the confidence and ensure that women have access to experiences that they may never have previously experienced, and are women who are looking, quite often to enter into public life or to progress in their careers in some way. But as a trade unionist, of course, I would say a woman's place is absolutely in her union. And as a woman General Secretary, the first BME woman in leadership in our Welsh labour movement, sharing a space with other women at the forefront of organising and campaigning to protect workers' rights like WEN Wales does, makes me feel immensely proud of how far we've actually come, but equally even more so driven to end inequalities like sexism once and for all. Now, I've been mentored and I've also been a mentee, and I genuinely do recognise what Shereen was just saying about, when you are mentoring somebody else, you do develop a friendship. And it does become a very a two-way relationship. So there isn't this kind of like one specific way of mentoring somebody. Everyone's experience can be different, but that's okay. But for me, I've always valued the sisterhood that exists in the social justice and the trade union movement, and I've always felt the support of many others who have stood with me and actually lifted me up through some of the most difficult and challenging times. But, my mentoring, I would say, started again, in my family. I come from a background where women are often stereotyped and discriminated against, women who are often, considered to be quiet and timid and compliant. And for me, this was definitely not something that was normal. It was something that I always kicked back against. I was really lucky, and I was surrounded by strong women, including my own mother, but also men like my father, who encouraged me to come forward and to do things that were sometimes seen as outside of the box for women, particularly for women who come from similar backgrounds, working class backgrounds as well as myself. As trade unionists, we are striving continuously for a labour market that is much better, fairer, and exclude absolutely no one. But we're facing lots of challenges right now. But I would say that the two most stand out for me are making sure that women are properly rewarded for what they did during the pandemic, but also how we can now achieve a green and just transition and have a recovery that is going to be wholly defined by equality of outcome, because it is so important. And this is something that has continuously come about when I have been mentoring as well through the WEN programme, but other programmes that I have supported, that many women, more often than not, have recognised that they are being excluded, that they are being held back by the jobs market. We know for sure the data is there that they've been hit hardest by the economic aspects of the crisis. We know that the global recession, of course, by the fact that more women have lost their jobs than men. We know all of the issues that we've had with the furlough scheme. Whilst it was, yes, successful in protecting jobs, it could still, very much have gone much further to protect women's jobs in particular. And yesterday, Catherine and I were given evidence to the Equality and Social Justice Committee yesterday for the Senedd in relation to the effectiveness of the current Welsh Government childcare provision in supporting employment in Wales. And I referenced some TUC research that we had done. And this really tells you something. And research told us that 7 in 10 working mums had a furlough request turned down during the last round of the school closures. And 9 in 10 had reported increased anxiety, stress, and around half were really worried about how they would be treated negatively by their boss because of all of their childcare responsibilities. So for me, organisations like WEN and the work that WEN does is so important, because they stand with the trade union movement. They are not scared of the big issues, and they will very much support the campaigns that we are pushing forward, because they see the range of different women who come forward, who want to progress within their jobs, but also see very much so the various different problems that they are facing. But here in Wales, we have got some really good foundations. We've got some really good, groundbreaking legislation already. We've got the Future Generations Act. We've now enacted the Socio-Economic Duty. And of course, we've got the Social Partnership and Public Procurement Bill again. So we have all the right foundation to make sure that Wales becomes a fairer, a more equal and just society. But the reality is that unless organisations like WEN continue doing brilliant work that they have been doing, and that women like myself who are in the positions that we are in, that we don't simply just take up the space for ourselves, but continue to remind each other that we have to pull everyone up, and so that we are all sat together as one, and we have that solidarity and support around each other, we're not actually going to be able to achieve what we definitely need, which is that women deserve a feminist intersectional recovery. But it's only going to happen if we are united and we work together, and that we are at every single decision-making table. Thanks, Catherine.
Thank you so much, Shavanah. Diolch yn fawr. Just well said, absolutely well said. We do stand with you in terms of making sure that women have an equal role. That's our Diverse 50/50 campaign, which I'm going to talk a bit about later. It's so important that women are at every decision-making table. And yeah, the thing about the green and just transition, we 100% agree with, because and it is something that we're calling for. And in fact, there was a phone in on Radio Wales this morning that I took part in, and I pushed the point again that caring jobs are green jobs, and they should really be, care should be invested in as part of the building back better from the pandemic. So thank you, Shavanah. I'm now really delighted to introduce something a little bit different. We are going to have a poem. And I'm really excited to tell you that this poem is going to be, has been written by Krystal Lowe, who is an amazing woman. She's a huge role model for many young girls today. She's a Bermuda-born, Wales-based, self-producing dance artist, choreographer, writer, and director. And her work explores the themes of intersectional identity, mental health, and well-being. So I'm delighted to ask Krystal to share her poems with us now. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's really incredible to be here and to hear from so many really empowered women, and to hear just that courage and strength as you speak. Yeah, it's incredible to be in this space with you all. Thank you for inviting me. I have just two poems that I'll share today, and one is about rewilding and kind of taking that idea and concept in nature and putting it on myself as a person and for other women. And the rewilding idea is not about wildness and about the idea that to be authentic is wild, especially as a woman of color, that my authentic self isn't wild, but that we as a civilization, as people, we call things that we don't understand wild. And so it's about kind of taking back who I really am. And so I'll just recite this poem for you. There were soil-stained feet racing across stepping stones warmed by the midday sun to meet tall trees, branches wrapped in old man's beard. There were climbers not afraid of scars and bruises, reaching the very tops of the trees, clinging on for dear life, while beads of sweat rolled down out of breath, red faces, out of breath, awe-filled faces. These were my childhood. There was waking up to the subtle rhythm of humming lawnmowers, exposing caterpillars both brown and smooth and ebony with prickles all over. There were caterpillar houses made from parsley jars, which made parsley forever remind me of caterpillars. There were countless hours enjoying the brilliant monotony of swing sets, while the smell of freshly cut grass hung heavy in the air. There were dirt holes throughout the garden made into mud pies, secretly baked in brick ovens by self-appointed chefs. And then there was the fall of the self-appointed chefs when the secret bakery was discovered. These were my childhood. There were seas of bright yellow dandelions flooding the garden. There were cartwheel lessons through waves of sun-bleached grass led by instructors who remarkably resembled sisters. There were visions of outstretched mirrors, twirling skirts, hovering dancing legs, while golden-headed weeds watched in awe. Then there was the crashing of applause like currents at the end of their journey. These were my childhood. There were books with innumerable pages read by her familiar voice, catapulting us all into very strange and wonderful worlds even more wonderful than our own. There were shared beds with cold feet and hot breath making its mark in the most annoying spot at the edge of my face. These were my childhood. There was warm sun and dark skin and braided hair. There were countless sisters and that one brother. There were swing sets and rivers of dandelions. Those were my childhood. When I was just a little girl, I'd twirl, then swirl with brightly colored fabrics and painted nails. I was enamored by all that was me. Take me back to when I was uncultivated, to when I was filled with the wonder of me. Reroot me in soil rich and deep, remake me into something raw and make me all that I was meant to be. I am not here as an exhibition for your private amusement. I am not to be used as a commentary. She's too big, too old, too dark. She's too young, too thin, too light. Unravel me and see the woman that hides behind ordinary lies, beneath the guise of everything's all right, covered by disguise, fully clothed through life. Undress me and see all that makes me. Got your fingers down my every curve, memorize my marks, and there you'll find me. There you'll find me. I am me, replanted for my total restoration, replanted for regrowth. I will rebuild me into something true, reconciled to who I'm meant to be. I have exiled all that doesn't add up to me. Wild and free are all I want to be. So I strip away until all that remains is a little child, the girl I was, unafraid, undefiled by the world around. I am rewild. I think, thank you. Yeah, I just wrote that based on everything that comes off as we grow up, or that should come off, that was put on us as young as girls, you know. And I think that is the thing that I keep hearing again and again in civilization, in nature, and I don't know, in culture, in community, and I hear it today, that the expectation put on women, the things that are put on women, specifically women, the assumptions, as if we're made for someone and not for ourselves, for our own pleasure, for our own encouragement, for our own empowerment, for our own fulfillment. And we are made for ourselves and to be that empowered being. So this last poem is a shout out to all the women who are just refusing to bend under the weight of societal expectations. Shout out to all the women who name themselves. The women who don't let anyone else decide who they are, how much they understand, and where their place is in this world. Shout out to all the women who persist all alone, and to those who persist in pairs of women who support each other through it, whatever it is. Shout out to the women who stand up for what they know is right, even when others tell them they're wrong. To the women who stand against injustice of all kinds and never take no for an answer. Shout out to the women who understand their worth and who fight to be valued in the ways they deserve. Shout out to the women who have given up, been shamed, quieted, and held back, and came out of that place and became something great. Shout out to all the women who define greatness and success for themselves and not those definitions imposed upon them. You women are who I look to when I forget who I am, what I'm doing, and what I deserve. I look to you and you remind me of all I am and can be. So keep going, be passionate and brave, break down and take rest, be everything you decide to be. Thank you so much.
Krystal, thank you so much. That was incredible. We're so lucky that Anne-Marie, my wonderful colleague at WEN Wales, her daughter benefits from your incredible dance classes, and we came across you. So thank you so much for your time today. And those poems were really powerful and really beautiful. So thank you.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. Really great kind of interlude to help us think. So thank you, Krystal. So I'm delighted now to introduce Grace Quantock, who is a former mentee of WEN Wales and also now an incredible board member in various places. So I'm going to ask Grace to share her experience of WEN Wales, and over to you, Grace.
Diolch yn fawr, Catherine. Thank you. Yes, hello. I'm so honoured and delighted to be here. I'm Grace Quantock. I am a therapist, a writer, researcher, and public appointee. I sit on boards across social care, health, and human rights. And that's because I'm a graduate of the WEN mentoring scheme for women in public life. So when I first discovered boards existed in my mid-20s, I knew I wanted to contribute to the conversation. I didn't know how. My first interview for a health board had over 250 applicants, and people had flown in to interview. And I had got the bus from my council estate in the Valleys and was kind of surprised to be in the room, to be honest, and didn't really know what to do when I was there. I was the only person in the room who wasn't a mayor or a former head of social services or a retired captain of industry, or at least that's what it felt like at the moment. I was the only visibly disabled woman in the room. I was the only person under 30, and I was one of just a handful of women. I didn't get that role, but I knew at that time I was going to need support to understand this incredibly complex landscape and how to navigate it as a woman who holds multiple marginalised identities. And so I was really lucky to come across WEN's mentoring program for public appointees, and it has been life-changing for me and for my family. So now today I am an independent board member with Social Care Wales. We are the national body for social care in Wales, and I am a board member there, and I deputy chair regulation and standards. I am also an independent member for Digital Health and Care Wales, the NHS Wales digital body, where I'm deputy chair of audit. I also am an associate non-exec with the Wye Valley NHS Trust in Hereford, where I'm also wellbeing guardian.
I don't know if everyone else is experiencing the same thing. Unfortunately, we've lost Grace. I can see some nods. Grace has frozen. I'm just going to wait 1 minute and just look at my notes and see who's on next and whether we come back to Grace shortly. Hold on. So I think as Grace has frozen, but she was sharing such a powerful message of how many boards she's on and how incredibly well she's done. I'm now going to invite Rees, who was next on the list, if that's okay. So can I pass over to Mia? Mia, it'd be wonderful to hear from you.
Thank you very much, Catherine. And I'm sorry that I am the halftime entertainment for Grace, who is a very worthy speaker and has contributes to public life in such an incredible way. I really hope that we can all hear from her at some point this evening. So thank you very much to WEN for inviting me to speak. For me, WEN installs a passion in women, giving them belief in what they can achieve both individually and collectively, both celebrating their achievements and championing women. And this is epitomised by WEN Wales' celebration of 100 Welsh women. Being a WEN mentee was truly a transformative experience for me, which might sound a bit OTT, but that's who I am. When I became a mentee, I had no confidence to take myself to the next level. I had knowledge and I had understanding of the world and what I thought I wanted to do, but just no belief that it was something that I could do. I very much thought it was something for others. However, WEN gave me that confidence and helped me overcome those barriers and gave me that self-belief that, yeah, you can go for it, you can achieve it. And not just that I can, but that I was wanted in that space. I met amazing women who I believed in and who believed in me, and that was incredibly powerful. Since becoming a WEN mentee, I have become a counsellor in Cardiff. I have joined a board for Cardiff YMCA, which I'm incredibly passionate about and I thoroughly enjoy. And this year became the chair of the largest subcommittee of that board, overseeing all of youth and community for Cardiff YMCA's provision in Cardiff and the Vale, which I'm super excited about and really honoured to be given such responsibility. And I also stand for the Senedd in May, which was a hugely exciting experience and not something I thought I would do, certainly not before I was 35. So it was a really incredible experience and I learned a lot, and I have to say I thoroughly enjoyed quite a lot of it, much to my surprise. These roles have made me stronger and made me believe strongly in the important role that women need to play in public life. We are not an optional extra. We are a necessity to public life. If it is to function well, and if it is to really represent the community that it should serve. I'd like to wish WEN a massive good luck for the next 10 years. Please continue to install, grow and promote women in Wales. Give them the belief in themselves that WEN has in them. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mia, and it's wonderful to hear about your journey and around being a counsellor and your other board appointments. It's absolutely brilliant. So now I'm going to go over to Justna Muhith, please. Justna, you've got the floor. Justna is a previous WEN mentee also, and we're delighted to have you here. Justna.
Thank you very much, Catherine. First of all, I'd like to start with thanking WEN for all the incredible work they do. And when I look back on my time when I joined WEN Wales, I came to WEN Wales when I needed more of a psychological safety net. I just needed a reminder that we women do matter, our voices does matter. I needed to remind myself how, as women, we can rise and we can help others to rise. My time at WEN as a mentee, I was mentored by Meena Upadhyaya, who I couldn't have asked for a better mentor. Absolutely amazing, inspirational in everything that she does for those that she supports, but also for the scientific community. We had a great connection. We had a scientific background, which gave us a basis to start on. But since having done the WEN mentorship program, I believe I have come a long way, and I have really lived the thought that women do matter, and there's so much more that that we can contribute to society. Since the program, I have joined Women's Connect First. So Women's Connect First helps the Black and ethnic minority communities. I have joined the Healthcare Business Women's Association, which is a scientific community that supports women in healthcare to make sure that they get gender parity. I am part of the Ethnic Minority Welsh Women's Association mentorship program. I do quite a lot of other things outside to make sure that we represent women in leadership and also ethnic minority women in the workplace as well as out in society. I like to think of myself as setting little flames or tea lights that shine bright everywhere I go, so I can pass on that tea light to the next person, so they can continue that fight for gender equality and inclusive society, making sure that ethnicity is included as well as other intersectionalities. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, WEN Wales and Meena and Women's Connect First for helping me grow and helping the next generation of leaders grow too.
That's wonderful, Justna. Thank you so much. You were a brilliant mentee, and as you say, referencing your wonderful mentor, Meena, our mentors have just done so much for us, haven't they? And it's so exciting that we've got the launch of our new Equal Power, Equal Voice mentoring scheme coming up. So thank you very much, Justna, and all our speakers so far. I'm really delighted now. I'm feeling slightly starstruck here as I introduce two wonderful sporting legends from Wales. One, Professor Laura McAllister, who is an academic and titan of public life here in Wales, and also Jess Fishlock MBE. So Jess is a professional footballer for Wales and ar-lein, and it is 6:30 in the morning in America. So a really huge thank you to Jess for doing this talk for us. She is the first Welsh player to earn 100 caps for the national team, and during her long and illustrious career, she's been outspoken about equality and women's rights and her experience as an out lesbian athlete. Alongside her many footballing achievements, it include winning the UEFA Women's Champions League. She has also been awarded an MBE for services to football and the LGBT community. I'm nervous. She says, we do have a voice, we do have a platform, we're not just footballers, and we can help create change. So thank you, Jess and Laura. Over to Laura, who's going to be in conversation with Jess now for a conversation. And if you do have questions, put them in the Q&A function. Thank you so much.
Great. Diolch yn fawr iawn, Catherine, and thanks to everybody for a really positive hour or so. I've really enjoyed listening to everyone. Jess and I go back a long way. I think that's the first thing to say. When I was captain of Cardiff City Ladies, I remember a skinny little kid coming along who was about 8 or 9. She'd been involved with the Cardiff Council, I think it was called Champion Coaching. Is that right, Jess, at the time?
Yeah.
She'd been spotted already as being a kind of momentous talent, but I can remember her coming along. She was a sassy little kid. She was uber confident, but so talented. And I remember looking at her and thinking, gosh, I wish I had a fraction of the talent this girl's got. And what's most pleasing, I think, is the way not only she's fulfilled that talent in her football career, but the way she's also used that as a platform for some really significant causes and some really personally important things to her as an individual, and things which, of course, are really important to all of us who work on the equality agenda in Wales. So, Jess, great to see you, of course. Great to have you with us. It's always a pleasure. As you know, normally we're having a coffee, aren't we, or a beer or something and a chat. Jess is a big coffee fan, by the way, everybody. So she's always looking out for the best coffee shops in Cardiff. Tell us a little bit about your small p political roles now, because not many footballers, while they're still playing, are so interested in the kind of politics of equality and of women's rights and LGBT rights. Did you kind of fall into that, or was that deliberate?
No, hi, by the way, good morning, everybody. I know it's afternoon there, but as you can see by my face a little bit right now, it's still really early morning here. I definitely fell into it. It wasn't something that I kind of went looking for, or something that I always knew that I kind of wanted to do, or wanted to at least try and dip my toes into. I think as I grew up and realized that not only was sport bigger than just being sport, and that social media has kind of created athletes to have this platform now. I guess I had a choice whether I wanted to use that, or at least try and use that for bigger things than just kind of myself and my sport. And obviously I'm around a lot of really big kind of influential women and people, and so they obviously help me understand that if I can create kind of some change, then I should at least try.
And I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? It's always been interesting to me, as somebody who's been involved in politics and football and sport, that in women's football particularly, far more of us embrace that role. You know, if you compare it to the men's game, it's changed recently, admittedly, with people like Marcus Rashford and so on. But it's always been women footballers, hasn't it, who've spoken out about our identity and equality and even bigger political issues. Why do you think that's the case?
You know, I think, honestly, I think it's because we've actually have a lot more say in our sport and what our sport represents. Like we have shaped our sport as women. I think it's because probably we didn't have as much backing, or we don't have as much investment, and so we are able to determine kind of what our sport looks like, or at least what we want it to try and look like. And I think that's why a lot more women athletes in kind of any sport that they're in have a much bigger voice and actually want to create the change. I think for so long, the sport kind of never really gave us anything. And so by having a voice and by creating the change that we want in kind of society, that has always kind of fulfilled us in a different way. But as now sport and women's sports become bigger and bigger, it actually kind of aligns, because it means that we can shape it to be exactly what we want it to be. And I just don't think that the men's side of sports allows you to do that. You know, I think it's so kind of big and so corporate that I just don't think those voices are there.
And we're not making this conversation obviously just about football and sport, but it seems to me there's parallels to be drawn with where we are in women's football at the moment and where we are in other sectors with equality, because you know, we've come a long way, haven't we, from obviously from the days when I was playing, and you remember some of that, of course, because you know you knew us as internationals at the time, and it's been great to see the current squad looking back to the kind of people who, you know, took steps towards getting to where we're getting to now. So we've come a long way, but we've still got a heck of a long way to go, haven't we? And it's about creating that balance, isn't it, of not being churlish about the progress we've made, but equally being really driven by making the next step of change. And just tell us, what do you think we've got to do to kind of own our game more and develop it in a way that to make it different for our children and our grandchildren?
Yeah, look, that's a great question, because I actually think we are kind of in that little space where things are improving and things are getting a lot better, but we can't kind of be, what's what I'm looking for so long. Women athletes have been in this little bubble where we should be thankful and we should be appreciative of whatever we get, because whoever gives us something, that should be enough for us. You know, we've always kind of lived like that. And we have to be careful that, yes, because things are getting better and there is more kind of investment, and not just investment, but the media are doing better things, and you know, businesses are kind of investing a little bit more. I think that what we can't do is fall back into that kind of bubble of being thankful again, because the reality is yes, although things are getting better, we're still probably 50 years away, if not 100 years away from where they actually should be. And so we still have to keep pushing and keep fighting for change still, for the future, for our children. But we still, whilst also recognizing that change has happened, I believe you can do both. But what we can't get to is being caught in kind of stopping pushing for change because stuff has happened. Because actually what has happened now should have happened a long time ago. And, you know, as much as yeah, we can appreciate that and acknowledge that, you know, I'm also not going to sit here and be thankful for something that should have happened a long time ago. And we have to be careful that we don't, you know, revisit that bubble just because now we're actually getting a little bit of kind of respect that we should have got a long time ago.
So just talk to us about equal pay. It's a big issue in the US, but it's a big issue for us now again in Wales, isn't it?
Yeah, I think equal pay and equality from that perspective is a very kind of big conversation that we're having and is ongoing. And I think that it's something that is within kind of the whole of Wales, not just football, you know, in every kind of sport. You saw that the rugby just got first contracts now for the first time in Wales, which is a huge step. And, you know, I keep reading about how amazing this is, and WRU are doing such great things. And I'm sat here going, it's 2021 and they're just giving out contracts. And I'm supposed to sit here and congratulate that move that should have happened a long time ago. And I just can't do that personally. Like I just can't, because, you know, these women have been incredible doing what they've been doing for so long. And I think with equal pay, it's something that we have to fight for. It really is. And we have to have those uncomfortable conversations with the kind of big guys in the boardrooms. And we have to keep pushing to get them to see why equal pay is so much bigger than just money, you know, because that's not what it is and that's not what it represents. But unfortunately, that is all that anybody ever sees. And so our kind of messaging and our conversation has to be equal pay is not just about money, it's about so much more than that, you know. And if you can kind of push that out for what equal pay represents for the whole of Wales and the next generation, that message, I think personally, changes our country and changes our future. And that's what we have to keep fighting for.
You talked there, Jess, about the big guys in the boardroom, and I know you'll have used that term very deliberately. You know as well that our sport is still overwhelmingly male dominated in terms of its governance. That's typical across the world, as I know, having contested an election earlier this year unsuccessfully for FIFA. Thank you for your support in that, obviously. But, you know, how do we start to change it? Because, you know, I was conscious in my campaign we're fighting, it's like pushing water up a hill, you know, we're making very, very, very slow progress. And even when we do get women, unfortunately, on boards in football, they tend to be women who are voice pieces for men rather than women from our game, as I found to my detriment in that election. So how do we start to change it? You know, have you got any thoughts on that?
You know, I think that's something that we're all trying to figure out, and we're all trying to find a way to get the appropriate people in charge to make the decisions that we kind of need for our game, you know, for the women's game, which is very different to the men's game with regards to what it needs to thrive. And, you know, in truth, you know, the system is broken and the system is flawed because, like you just said, you try and get women in, and even when you do, their voice is still probably not heard, and they don't feel valued, and they don't feel like they can actually do what they want to do for the right reasons. And so it's not just about, oh, can we get a woman in this kind of place? It's how can we get women in these places that can actually create the change that we need, right? And be the voice that we actually need them to be. And I think that that's going to be a long process. I think first and foremost, what we really need is to have men in charge that are allies to women. Because for me, it's going to be the people that are in charge now need to be allies for women, because they're the ones that are going to be able to help us create the change that we need by putting women in places that will create the change. But if we don't have allies right now, that's never going to happen. And the truth is you can never kind of do these things alone, you know, and creating change for women and women's sports and equality. It's not just going to be women helping women, it is going to be men helping women, because that's actually what needs to happen. And we need to make sure that whoever we have on the board, whether they're male, whether they're female, we need them to have respect for women and for women's game and for equality everywhere. And so I don't want to live in a world where it's just women looking out for women. I don't want to live in that world. I want to live in a world where men look out for women and women look out for what is right and men look out for what is right. And that is how we actually are going to get where we create the change that we need.
Yeah, and in a sense, we've got to do the two things simultaneously, haven't we? We've got to persuade the men who are in power to work with us now, but there's got to be a time when some of them at least step aside to have a woman's voice heard. And I mean, you know, just going back to my FIFA election, you know, 22 countries were big enough to vote for that, but, you know, 33 weren't. And that's where we are, I think, in terms of thinking about having women from sport, women who know the sport, in the most important positions. You know, and we're away from that at the moment, so we've got to find a way through. Just I'm conscious of time. Just tell us a little bit about your passion as well to speak up for LGBT rights, because, you know, you've been very vocal, quite understandably. I know that's not just from a personal standpoint, but there's a whole issue, isn't there, over social media bullying and young people and so on. And I know you're really passionate about that.
Yeah, look, I'll always kind of fight and kind of stand up for the LGBT community. Well, for anybody really that I feel needs help, but, you know, I will advocate for our community. I think, what kind of started that was obviously my youth was a difficult time for me, personally. You know, it wasn't so easy. I mean, it's not easy now being gay and being out. But back then, you know, it certainly wasn't easy at all. And I think for us as well, you know, we back in the UK, I still don't think that we're super progressive enough. I don't think the visibility is big enough for the LGBTQ community, and I don't think that's anybody's fault, but it just is the way that the UK is. I just don't believe that we're super progressive. It's still kind of a taboo subject. Nobody really wants to talk about it. But I think over the last definitely feel for me over the last kind of 5 years, it's changing, and there's more and more being done for those conversations and difficult conversations. And I just feel that, especially with the LGBTQ youth, it's a very dark place. There's a lot of, you know, homelessness and a lot of kind of suicides, and you know, if you look at those figures, it's truly heartbreaking. And I just want to be visible for those people that need kind of just a light at times, a light to help them kind of grow, or at least just survive that day, really. Because I feel extremely lucky to be able to live my life now as a very free and open, happy, content lesbian. But the truth is that there's not many people that can do that. And you know, that's really, really hard. It's really, really hard.
It strikes me as well that this is another positive illustration of how we've owned our sport in women's football, because there are loads of out gay women in football, whether that's as players, as coaches, as people involved in the governance of the game, and it is much more normalized when you compare it with the men's game, where we still don't have an current gay footballer in the men's Premier League. I mean, in some other countries, yes, it's starting to happen. So, you know, it's important that in this case, the men's game and men's sport learns from the women's game, I think. I'm sure you'll agree with that. There's a couple of questions coming in, Jess, so I'm going to chuck them at you from the chat. Okay, you've played in a few different countries, so that's a bit of an understatement. You've travelled the world, haven't you? I wonder if you can highlight a few of the positive things you've learned from those countries that we could take forward in Wales.
Oh, great question. You know, one of the best things about my career is being able to live in all these different places and learn loads of different cultures. Because I think that sometimes if you kind of stay in one place, you think that culture is like how you're supposed to live and what you're supposed to do. But I realized traveling the world that the cultures are so different, and that's okay. And that every kind of place has its own kind of way of that they live. And it doesn't mean that it's right or wrong. You know, it's just different, and that has really kind of shaped me as well as a human, to be honest with you. I think for me, you know, obviously I've been in America now, and I've lived here for almost 10 years, and you know, I can't really see me ever leaving. And I think what I love about America, that probably a lot of people from the outside don't really see or like, is in certain parts of America, you know, it is very open and it is very honest, and it's very kind of diverse. You know, Seattle specifically is just a place where you can be, and that's okay. You know, everybody can be themselves. It's like this little pocket of just kind of existence, really. You live, you do what you want to do when you want to do it. You kind of have the culture of everybody else, but you never kind of, you can just be. That's what I felt over here, is I can just wake up every morning and I can just be who I am. And I'm not kind of judged, I'm not kind of frowned upon, you know, I'm not ever those things. And that's been the biggest thing here that I have realized in kind of America. And there's obviously conflict, but I mean, I think that happens kind of everywhere. At least here, I think it's most honest of conflicts, which I enjoy. And then I think, you know, in Australia, their culture is way different. It's super laid back, which I enjoyed as well. And I think what I loved about Lyon in France and Germany as well is that they kind of live in a different, in like a little time capsule. Like in Europe, I find that time also almost slows down and you get to really enjoy the moment a little bit more. I think over here in America, everything is like go, 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 because everybody wants to just have what they want like right now. Whereas what I find really nice about Europe is it's just a little bit slower, you know, like everybody can just take a little minute, go for a walk, have a little coffee, and you know, the world is still going to work. And I kind of really like that about Europe. And so I've kind of been able to mash all that together. And I think in Wales we can kind of put all that together as well, because we're kind of a little country, we're kind of a little bit special. We should be able to feel like we can do whatever we want, but also at a slow enough pace that you get to enjoy it, right? Because otherwise, what's the point in doing anything?
We know how proud you are to play for Wales, Jess. It's pretty evident, you know, every time you turn up and put the Welsh shirt on. You've got 2 big games coming up. I was talking to your gaffer on Saturday night, in fact, at the Belarus game, and she's calling them Game 5 and Game 6, isn't she? But you know, we know it's Greece against Wales in Llanelli a week Friday. So if you haven't got tickets, everybody, please get down there and support the girls. And then France away the following week. Massive games for us, Jess, because we got real momentum, haven't we, in terms of qualifying for the next World Cup. Just tell us, and I'll bind in a question that's come in as well. How important is this, not just for the team and for everything we do in football, but for kids, for grassroots girls who want to play football, who see you guys as role models? Just tell us what it means, you know, qualification for a World Cup.
Yeah, look, I think obviously everything that we've talked about today, and everything that we kind of are as a group for Wales, is it's not ever just about football, right? Sometimes you kind of wish that it was, but the reality of it is what we're trying to do for our future and for the kind of the next generation. These games and these qualifications are so much bigger than just football, right? And some people would think that that's pressure, or that you know, you come home and you can't just enjoy playing for Wales because you've got to think about all these things. The truth is, our group we've always had to do that, from your time that you were playing, Laura, to obviously my time now, is that it has always been bigger than that, because we've always been pushing it and always had to fight for the future. You know, when you were playing, you were fighting for me, right? That's the reality, so that I would have a better future with Wales. And ultimately, that's what we're doing all the time. And so that's why kind of qualification for a World Cup is just huge, and it's just of an enormous magnitude, because it's the visibility that we always talk about, you know. And although we're getting there, if you're a little girl in Wales, or even a little boy in Wales, and you see Wales and everything that you are, your kind of country, and it's in a World Cup and it's on the TV and everybody's talking about it, and everybody's talking about us and our stories and our lives, then what you're going to see is that could be you, right? And that's something that you could not even realize that that's what you wanted to do until you saw that moment on the TV, right? Because that is that's our future. You know, everything is going to be, whether it's live stream, whether it's on social media, that is the future, whether we like it or not. And that's the visibility that we need. And the truth is that you don't know that you want it until you see it, or you don't know that that's what you want to do until you realize one day that that's what you want to do. And it can be something as easy as getting to, not easy, let me tell you, it's not easy. It's not easy, but that changes our whole landscape of women's football.
For sure, yeah, for sure. Look, I'm conscious of time, Jess. I've got another question for you before we wrap up. I was listening to a podcast last night, funnily enough, and Sebastian Basson, who played for Cameroon and Newcastle and Tottenham and so on. He said something which struck me as being a really important point. He said, we've got to encourage footballers to believe that football is the vehicle, not the destination, because you'll retire when you're 33, 35, 36, 37, whatever. So tell us, what's life going to be like after football, Jess? You know, when you're an ex-footballer, are you going to be a member of the Senedd? What are you going to do? Come on, spill the beans.
You know, I think everybody always just thinks right now that I'm going to stay in football, or that's kind of what I want to do. And I honestly just don't know if that is what I want to do. I do think that when I finish playing, that I actually want to go down a different route. You know, I see a lot of what you do, and I see a lot of ways in different roles that I can create more change. And although I do believe that sport is a way to do that, and it's definitely given me the pathway to be able to find this passion that I didn't realize I had, which we just talked about. I do want to come home, and I do want to make our country better, and that's not for me at all. It's for the future. And I know that, you know, what I've been able to do with my career and what I've been able to do in my life, I want everybody to understand that, you know, we might be small, but we are by far one of the best countries in the world, and we can go and achieve what we want to. And I want kind of our future generations to understand that, you know, that there's a lot out there to do, and you can go and do it. And I just want to create change so everybody has that opportunity. And I just don't think that we have that right now in society anywhere. So yeah, I think I don't know if I'll be going into football, but I definitely want to go somewhere that will help create change, more change.
That's great to hear, reassuring to all of us, because we want you in public life, whatever that is, and we want you back in Wales. You can go on holiday to the US, of course, but you're going to come back to Wales. Laura. We'll give you permission. We're going to wrap it up there. Just diolch yn fawr iawn. I know Catherine's going to talk about this in a minute, but I think you better be careful and check your insurance with Rain, because I think she's going to rope you in for a bit of skydiving in the future as well. She's going to tell you in a moment what that's all about. But listen, pal, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to see you. I'll see you in Llanelli from the stands next week, and wishing you all the very best, of course.
Bye.
Diolch yn fawr, Jess, and diolch yn fawr, Laura. Thank you both so much. Jess, we want you back here. We want you as First Minister, please. When you finish playing your football, we'll see you here as First Minister. That would be amazing. But seriously, you've talked a lot about some of the challenges that women face in terms of the gender pay gap, men in boardrooms, you know, and I could add to that inequalities in women's health, violence against women, the constant online abuse, and a big push for us here in Wales around diverse and equal leadership. So we want to see more diversity in the Senedd, and we want to see, especially, I mean, it's taken 20 years for our first woman of colour to be elected to the Senedd. We don't want to have to wait another 20 years for the next one. It is absolutely appalling that it's taken that long. And so that's really why, and your conversation has shone a light on why WEN is so badly needed. So we've heard a lot about what WEN has achieved over the past 10 years, but now we need to look ahead to the next 10 years, make sure we're sustainable, and make sure that we're really taking advantage of the unique opportunity we have right now, because we're going through Senedd reform right now. We're going to have an enlarged Senedd, and we need to get all our focus on making sure that Senedd is diverse, as well as has equal numbers of women and men. So this is our 10th anniversary year, and we are not wanting to lose this opportunity to do a massive fundraising push, which is what we're launching today and what Jess has kindly helped us launch WEN at 10. So we are taking part in a skydive. So far, I wrote 2 of our team into it. That's me and Megan. And we are going to do a skydive Saturday, the 30th of April. We've got 10 spaces for our WEN at 10 skydive. If you want to join us and jump 10,000 feet and help us raise as a team £10,000, please do get in touch. You can see all about it on our link, on the link that Anne-Marie's just posted in the chat. But we're really excited about this campaign. You can also choose to do your own workout for WEN at 10. You can walk 10,000 steps. You can swim 10K, you can run 10K, but whatever you do, please do get involved and support us if you can. We've got some new pages on our website, our support us pages, and you can find out more there. So please do get involved. Jess, if you want to jump out of a plane with us, we'd absolutely welcome you. We really would, it would be brilliant. Book that ticket back to Wales for April the 30th next year. So thank you very much to all the speakers so far. You've been absolutely amazing. I felt very emotional actually listening to everyone's contributions and thinking about how far we've come. It's not over yet. We've now got the excitement of our AGM and looking back at the last year in particular. And don't worry, I know we haven't spoken yet with Susie Davis, but she's going to speak a bit later within the AGM. So we haven't forgotten her in case you were worried that she'd been left off our speaker list. So without further ado, thank you so much, Laura, for your contribution and being such a good friend of WEN. Thank you, Jess, and thank you to all the other incredible women who've spoken so far today. Please do join us if you're not a member already. And now I'm really delighted to hand over to Sarah Powell, our chair of WEN Wales, for the AGM.
Thank you, Catherine, and hi everyone. I suppose I'm going to have to repeat some of the thank yous because just sitting here and listening to all those incredible speakers is just absolutely phenomenal. And thank you for all of your contributions. I have to mention Krystal. That poem was inspirational. I've already written down, refuse to bend under societal pressures. And to hear Jess reminding us that although we're celebrating here today 10 years of all the success that we've seen, there is so much more that we still have to achieve. So I keep reminding myself that we must celebrate, but we also must be driven to continue to achieve the things that we need to do. So a welcome to our AGM, the formal part of the proceedings. Catherine will be steering me through with some slides on the screen, so you might not see me, but you'll see what we're taking you through. So firstly, apologies for absence and the approval of the minutes. We don't have, I believe, any apologies for absence. If there are any that anybody's aware of, please could you just put them in the side chat bar and then we can record them formally. It's a little bit difficult doing it this way, but I'd normally just look for hands, but you may again, we're going to need a proposer for anybody who was in attendance at the AGM last year to ensure us that the minutes were a true record. So again, if somebody would like to propose, and then we could have a seconder for the minutes so we can get through the formal piece. I'm waiting for somebody just to nod that they've seen that we've got a proposer and a seconder. I'll take it that we will have somebody proposing and seconding.
Sorry to interrupt, Sarah. If
That's okay.
people can see a Q&A function and you're an audience member and you can propose and second, you can do it through the Q&A function or someone on the panel can do that. Thank you.
Perfect. I'm just going to skip on to the chair's report, and I'm not going to say too much because I think most of the speakers and Deputy Ministers said a lot of the achievements that we've seen this year, but you can see from the slide, it's been another fantastic year for WEN, but again, in very challenging circumstances. We've seen a real reality check now of the effect of the pandemic, and it's the pressure of that being realized across society. And the fact that I'm going to call them the small but mighty team at WEN has continued to innovate and to find creative solutions in these challenging times is testament to them. And I'm just going to highlight a few of the successes and take the opportunity just to thank some of the team. So I'm a great believer, and it's a bit of a football analogy. I'm sorry there's a football theme to this, isn't there, with Laura and Jess, but we are definitely stronger together. And one of our overarching aims is to strengthen and to build the coalition, and to see that we've had a 19% increase in individual members is important. but the 152% increase in organisations that have signed up to join WEN gives us that powerful voice. So when we are campaigning and we are influencing, we're able to do that as a collective. So I'm delighted to see that work, and a huge thank you to Meg, because she's been doing a massive amount of work in cajoling and encouraging people to join up. The gender network again has increased by 32%. So again, we've got more members getting involved and using their voice. And thank you to Jess for all of her work on that. You've heard about our equal power and equal voice work that we're doing in partnership with Disability Wales, East and Stonewall Cymru. And I'm delighted that the Community Lottery and the National Lottery have been able to support us alongside the Welsh Government. This is a vitally important programme. We've heard from a number of mentees and the mentors. This is definitely a partnership where we both gain from schemes such as this, but to have over 100 mentees signed up already and about to start their journey is fantastic. And I know this will help the work that Laura's doing and actually help us make a reality of the sort of world that Auriol suggested that we will see in public life, with more people having the confidence to stand and to be involved in elective office as well. In our campaigning, we've been doing a big focus on diverse 50-50 campaign with 21 member organisations signed up to work with us. And Evelyn has been leading the way on this work. And it's a very critical time for us now to push hard for gender and diversity quotas in the Senedd. We've talked about CEDAW and this being taken on in the programme of government. And I know a big thank you to Catherine, because it's been very close to her heart, but the access to elected office fund for people with disabilities is an impressive and very important step forward. We'll continue to champion International Women's Day. It was great to see the new toolkit being used by approximately 140 schools across Wales, trying to create the next generation of young feminists. And it's really important for WEN to see that diversity and to make sure that we involve young people. They really are the future, and you see what they are doing now, particularly around environmental activation. This is something that we want to embrace and bring into WEN. The WEN Cafe we set up as part of the pandemic to make sure that we were continuing to connect. And I think this has grown and grown, and certainly won't be something that we will see losing from our portfolio of offers. So we will definitely continue with the WEN Cafe. And I was really pleased to be part of the Education Cafe, part of Black History Month, where we actually had Rachel Clark speaking, the granddaughter of Betty Campbell. And we've all mentioned the statue that's been set up now in the centre of Cardiff, and fantastic show of diversity in Wales. And I hope to see the rest of the statues being put forward, and we'll continue to support the work of the monumental Welsh women. And please pass on our thanks to their great work. We were sad to say goodbye to Hilary Watson and Sarah Sweeney. They both left us this year, but Catherine will talk about the fantastic new members that we've been able to bring into WEN as well. I'm sad to say that this is actually my last meeting as the chair, as unfortunately I will be standing down before my end of term because I've taken up a job that's pulled me away from Wales. I say pulled because it did pull me. I will be back and I will continue to support the fantastic work of the team here, and I won't be too far away. It's genuinely been an absolute honour and a privilege and a pleasure for me to work with the team, but to see the progress that we've made. And I suppose in some ways it was fitting for me to hear all of those stories and to be part of the journey, and might be a chance for me to say thank you to Adele Beaumont and Laura McAllister, who were my chair and vice chair at Sport Wales when I was here. And I suppose it was written that I was going to become the chair of WEN Wales. I think they may have nudged me along the way. So a thank you to them as well. I know the new chair will be announced today, and she is with us, but I won't, I'll leave that until we announce the chair-elect. But I know that she will take WEN forward and continue to go from strength to strength, and I'm delighted that I will be able to work with them as well. That's it for me. That is my quick chair's report, and I'll continue on with the rest of the meeting. We now go on to the election of the trustees, resolution 1. So firstly, I'd just like to say a huge thank you to Kerry Lynn Doyle, Maria Mesa and Joy Kent, who will be stepping down, and to say a huge thank you to all three of them. They've been fantastic supports to me and to Catherine. They've given a huge amount of time outside of the meetings to make sure that all of our work and just really being really good mentors to us and continuing to support everything that we do. We have had an online vote for our new trustees, and I'm pleased to announce that our three trustees are Rahila Hamid, Jennifer Ramsey, and Susie Davis. So congratulations to all three. I'd also like to just say a huge thank you to everybody else who came forward and put forward their nominations, because it was an extremely good field, an exceptional field of nominees, but congratulations to all three. I'm actually going to ask Susie Davis if she would now like to speak. Some of you will know Susie, former MS and former chair of the cross-party group for women. So Susie, if you'd like to speak for a couple of moments, and congratulations.
Oh, well, wow, thank you very much. I must admit, I wasn't actually expecting this. And thank you for giving me the chance just to say a few words here, as I was due to speak a little bit earlier on. So I need to begin actually by saying Penblwydd Hapus and how wonderful it is to be able to celebrate the 10 years of Women's Equality Network here in Wales. But I have to say, listening to the other contributors just reinforces the genuine honour it is to be not just here this afternoon, but to join you as a trustee as well. And thank you so much for this. I suppose the one regret is that I won't be able to sort of join the service with the fantastic women who are leaving these roles. Like every other woman that I've met through politics is the best way to put this, I think. And you'll recognise this is like them. I wanted to do something, not just be somebody. And so this is where I do have a really big personal thank you to WEN Wales, because as a result of their particular approach and tone of influence and the leadership style that I saw, what I wanted to do has actually changed. It would have been very, very easy for an organisation in Wales to take a particular view of inclusivity and to talk to the same people over and over again in a space of mutual reinforcement. But Catherine and the rest of you haven't done that. And because you didn't, more and different people with powerful voices of their own have been meeting not just empowered women, but empowering women that they've never met before. And for me, of course, that's been through things like the cross-party group and the networking opportunities that you'd offered, as well as the direct engagement. But it's not just me. There are far more people who have been hearing truths that they would never have heard before, understanding experiences from completely different points of view, including experiences that we ourselves may have shared, but never realised that we shared. So I really do want to thank you, everybody in WEN, and in fact to East, for allowing me to be a mentor on their respective programmes. It's been such an enriching experience and a two-way experience. And I want to say to the mentees, actually, thank you for letting me watch you grow through these schemes, finding direction and resilience as advocates, MPs even, as entrepreneurs, and where you wanted to roots into public life, and where your leadership is going to be very much needed in the future for all the reasons that we've heard about in this next 10 years. Now, of course, for a short while, I was able to use frontline politics, to use what I've learned from you all to give confidence to women and to those male allies, not least in my own party, confidence to know that everyone has a right and a duty to understand and then speak up on those issues where WEN has already made an enormous amount of progress and will be doing that in the next 10 years as well. Now I've got different leadership roles, some in my party still, but in other areas of public life, although I think I've got some catching up to do compared with some of the rest of you. But my new audiences will be certainly feeling the power of the Women's Equality Network. This does not start and end with direct political engagement. You heard what Jess said about the boardrooms. And finding new ways to reach people, grow the number of people ready to listen, let alone act, does come with its own challenges. When WEN accepts this, the more people in the coalition, the more people there will be to have maybe conflicting opinions and priorities about next steps. But WEN has been so effective at making many voices speak with one message, that must continue. And yes, I know there'll be some of you here who think that it's taken forever to cut through. but there are many who are still yet to hear what you've got to say, what we have to say properly for the first time. So mentees, I'm going to repeat this again. You are part of helping Wales and the world hear and understand why women's equality and the rights that go with it really matter. Everyone who does this here, that hears us and understands us, takes us one step closer to genuine equality. And what WEN does is help us all lengthen our stride. I cannot wait to be one of your trustees. Thank you.
Oh, brilliant, Susie. We can't wait for you to get started. There is a lot to do. I like that, lengthen our stride. I'm just going to pass over to my incredible vice chair, Rhian Davies, who's been sat quietly waiting for the moment where we can actually announce, because Rhian undertook the recruitment process for our new chair. So I'll hand over to Rhian.
Thank you, Sarah. But before we do, just on behalf of the board, we really want to thank you for your outstanding contribution to WEN as chair over the last 2 years. You've demonstrated great leadership to the organisation and enabled us to develop the strategic vision that has led to the many success stories we've heard today. And your calm and reassuring presence has always been really valued in the board. So we're really going to miss you, but we do wish you all the very best for the future. And I'd just like to hand over to Catherine to say a few words.
Oh, I don't know if I can, because I'll get all emotional, but I really do want to say a massive thank you to Sarah. Please open the Prezi, Sarah, while we're here. But I really want to say Sarah has helped me grow hugely personally as a leader, and she's just been, as you say, so calm, so supportive, so inspiring and really trusting, and I have learned a huge amount from her. She's right across the table from me. I'll give her a cutch in a minute. It has been absolutely amazing and a privilege to work with Sarah. She's just an incredible woman, and I really hope she comes back to Wales and works with us all again. And I know incredible things are in store for Sarah. So thank you, Sarah. Please open that present, the one that's the frame.
I'm going to speak first because I've been stitched up. I never knew this was happening. And I wondered why they wanted me, and they brought me back to Sport Wales of all places to come and do this. But thank you so much for your kind words. Look, I've learned and taken so much more than I have given to this organisation, and I am so proud of what everybody's achieving. But I've gained friends for life as well. So thank you. It's very special for me. But no, please carry. I'll open it so people can see. I think that's the desire.
Yes, we want to see what we've given her so she can show it to everyone. There we go. Woo! There we go.
This will have pride of place in my new office, I promise you. Thank you very much. Right, back to you, Rhian.
Yeah, sorry about that stitch up, but these things have to be done. Okay, so it's now my great pleasure to introduce the new chair or propose the new chair of WEN Wales, and that is Mary-Ann Brocklesby. Mary-Ann is an intersectional feminist who has spent 30 years working and campaigning for women's equality across Europe, Asia and Africa. She was appointed this year as a fellow of Every Woman Global Coalition, which campaigns to advance the creation, adoption and implementation of a global treaty commensurate with CEDAW to end violence against women and girls. For over 10 years, she chaired the award-winning Auriol Tawi organisation, which has become Wales's largest community energy group. And she's also very much part of the family of WEN. She was a member of the second cohort of the WEN mentoring programme. Inspired by that, she stood as a candidate in the 2021 Senedd elections and was co-opted onto the Abergavenny Town Council. Above all, as Mary states, WEN's values are her values. So I'm delighted to nominate her as WEN's new chairperson and to look forward to working with her.
Thank you. I am just wow, wow, wow. This has been the most inspiring and moving 2 hours for a very long time. I was sitting here thinking I'm standing on the shoulders of giants, but that's not true. What I'm seeing is arms from the past linking to now, and just women holding up each other and empowering each other to make change. And that is hugely inspiring. And not just the women who've spoken here today, but all the women that were behind the women who spoke, and in all the ways that we have supported each other. And WEN has been playing quite a big part of this for the last 10 years. And I am utterly honoured and privileged to be part of it, hopefully for some years to come. And I would like to extend my thanks to Sarah. It's a huge act to follow, but it's an inspiring one. And I hope I can step into those shoes and support WEN in every way and help us grow. This, as many speakers have said, we've achieved so much, but we have so much more to achieve. We have so much more to do to transform Wales, and not only Wales, to where we don't even have to talk about gender equality. It's just what we do. Meanwhile, let's get on with the AGM.
That's brilliant. And congratulations, Marianne. I'm absolutely delighted. And I know the team can't wait to get going. Lots to do, but you'll have so much enjoyment in doing it.
I know.
Now we move on to the important bit, let's say. Alison, I'm going to hand over to you because you're going to take us through the accounts, please.
Alison, I'll just pop the PowerPoint up as well. Sorry.
Okay.
No slightly behind. I'm getting overexcited here.
Okay, right, we're going on now to Treasurer's Report, and this is Resolution 2, and 2 areas for adoption here: the adoption of the accounts and the appointment of the auditors. If I direct you to, you would have received the annual report and statutory accounts prior to this meeting, but if I direct you to page 13, which is the financial information. The main highlight for us is the total funding that we received through the year, which was £157,000, and the graph that you can see here now shows the breakdown of how that funding was apportioned, and you can see by the big green area was Welsh Government funding, which equated to 92% of the funding. And so that's 145k of the 157. We also operate the reserves policy to ensure we have adequate financial stability to meet our charitable objectives. And for the end of our year, our total funds increased from 24k in the previous year up to 36k moving forward. Moving on to the next slide, please, just to show the expenditure. Right, this slide shows the expenditure that we used those funds for, and again you can see the large yellow area there. That's mainly around salaries and pensions for the staff team that we've got here at WEN, who deliver the services that we've all experienced. And the second highest expenditure there is around events and publications, obviously like an event of this nature. These accounts, they are subject to independent examiners report, which is carried out by Bevan and Buckland. And I'm now going to pass you over to Michael Jones of Bevan and Buckland, so he can give you a run through the detail then of the independent examiner's report. Michael, over to you.
Hi Alison, thank you very much. Thanks for the handover. First of all, apologies from Alison Vickers. She's the examiner actually that oversaw the work. Unfortunately, she's stuck in other meetings, so I'm covering for today, but I can run through all the figures and run through what we've actually done for you. As examiners, there's a couple of things that we have to do. We have to make sure that the accounts comply with the relevant accounting standards. So that's the Companies Act and the Charity SALT. And on top of that as well, we have to make sure that you don't require an audit. So we have to do a bit of extra work around sort of governance and looking at your internal documentation. So from our point of view, we're happy that the accounts have been prepared correctly. How do we do that? We look at your accounting systems. We trace some items back to source documentation. So we agree the bank balance back to the bank statement. We look at income due around the year end, just to make sure all of the income has been captured correctly, that all your wages costs have been accurately recorded. So we'll do a number of checks around the figures themselves. We'll also do some checks around the system, just to make sure the system operates correctly. There are things that need to be done on a regular basis, things like what are known as reconciling your bank, just to make sure all your transactions are recorded. So we'll make sure those have been done and make sure that the accounts are prepared correctly. What we also then do is look at anything that happens after the set of the accounts. Obviously, the accounts run up to the end of March. Obviously, the meeting today is in November, so obviously quite a lot can happen in between. So we do sort of discuss with you just to make sure that there's nothing that could impact it. And obviously, the last thing we'd want to do is sort of tell you everything was fine to find out there was an issue. So we do it as part of the account, then we sort of cover a later period as well. So we've gone through, as I said, we've looked at the accounts compared to the Companies Act and the Charity SALT, and we're happy that both, the accounts comply with both standards. The accounts do tie into the records that they're based upon, and everything that we've requested, we've had information for as well. So we're happy that from an examiner point of view, the accounts are correctly recorded.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Right, following that presentation, we need to vote to adopt the annual report and the accounts. And also we are proposing as well to reappoint Bevan and Buckland as the auditors for the next financial year. So we'd have to propose it and a seconder for that.
Excellent. We've got that, it looks like. Sorry, I can't see the chat because I'm sharing my screen, but are you happy with that, Alison?
Yes, yeah, as long as we've got a proposer and a seconder, that's fine. Yeah.
Oh, it's been an uplifting couple of hours, but it's been quite a long couple of hours, and it's my I just realised it's my turn to talk. Thank you so much. I know we've said a lot of thank yous, but thank you to the board. Alison's been is an amazing treasurer, and the support that she gives to Kath Chatham, our amazing finance and admin officer, who also deserves a big clap, and the support she's given to me personally, and just, Sarah and Alison have been a really great team in terms of their kind of professionalizing WEN and really bringing us our standards much higher in terms of all our papers and everything else. So, and our governance. So a huge thank you to you, Alison, for the work you've been doing and will continue to do. Thank you. So I'm delighted to just, we are running slightly behind time, but I promise I won't keep you for long because I've already said a lot, but I just wanted to first of all reflect back a bit and remind you all of our strategy. And there it is, all in one page. This is part of Sarah Powell's strong legacy, actually, because she helped us develop this strategy and encouraged us to try and get it all on one page and just synthesize it. And it's just been so useful to have this here. So our vision is a transformed Wales free from gender discrimination, and we're definitely going to be around for the next 10 years delivering that. But the coalition is absolutely at the heart of everything we do. And yeah, the values, I just want to spend a minute reflecting on our values. We're responsible, we're relentless, and we're kind. And during the pandemic, our incredible staff team, and here they are, they've grown, but we've grown, and I'll tell you a little bit about each person in turn there, but our staff have been absolutely relentless. You know, some of them have got primary age children, and they still, you know, turn up to work every day, or turn up to work in their home office with all the stress that that entails. I'm getting quite emotional. So I want to welcome Anne-Marie and Joyce, who are working on our Equal Power, Equal Voice mentoring program to incredible women. I mean, weirdly, the pandemic has opened up the places we can recruit from, and Anne-Marie lives way over in Carmarthen, so she's had to leave now, but she lives way over in Carmarthen, so that's amazing that she can still be a part of WEN Wales. Then you can see Jess Lyman at the back of the photo there. She's our Policy and Public Affairs Officer. Again, really relentless, really kind. She put together an amazing consultation that I used, for example, both this morning on Radio Wales and yesterday in giving evidence to the Senedd on childcare. She's got amazing attention to detail. She's an amazing researcher, and she's an all-round incredible person. Megan, I can't go without thanking Megan, because Megan has put together this event today. She has really worked so hard on this event, on the press, on the speakers, on being here, on all the information about WEN at 10 and the skydive and all the web pages. Meg just quietly gets on with it in the background. She's an absolute force to be reckoned with. Kath is our finance and admin officer, who's absolutely brilliant. She's right here somewhere with me in this room. She does an incredible amount for WEN. She works part-time. In fact, a lot of us work part-time. And it's amazing. And not to forget Evelyn, who's at the front of that picture there, who is our Diverse 50/50 campaign manager, and is an incredible campaigner who comes up with amazing ideas. And we wish Evelyn actually all the best of luck, because she's due to have a baby literally any day or any week now. So we're really excited for her too, the first WEN baby. So yeah, our team are absolutely incredible, and I thank them all hugely, and it's an absolute honour to work with them all. I just want to talk actually now about, very briefly, about what the future looks like for WEN Wales. So we've, in the next 5 years, and like right now, we've just launched our fundraising campaign WEN at 10, and that's because we have to have a focus on our sustainability and draw in funds from other areas. And what became obvious to us is we can get funding, we can ask people to support us. We're doing really, really important work. And we really wanted to ask people to help us in our 10th anniversary year to make us more sustainable. So we've got new pages on our website around legacy giving and donating and so on. But we're also doing this incredible skydive, so please do get involved. The other big push for us is this Diverse 50/50 campaign. I've spoken briefly about it. It's so important because it will, I think it has the power to really change things hugely at the Senedd. It really has, having legally binding gender and diversity quotas will really help us get the leadership we deserve in Wales. And that campaign will continue to grow under Evelyn's leadership. We need to get more coalition members. We need to get our coalition writing to their MSs saying how much they support it. And we've got lots of plans in place. So that's going to be a big push for the next 18 months at least. We want to deliver the biggest and best mentoring scheme yet. A big shout out to the lottery and to Welsh Government for funding the scheme, and to our amazing partners, Disability Wales, East, Stonewall Cymru and ourselves delivering that scheme. And that's going to be running for the next 3 years. As part of the new equality and inclusion funding, we want to work on a coalition campaign with the race organisations and the disability organisations on raising awareness of our rights. So that's using the UN CEDAW Convention. We need to make sure that Welsh Government do implement it. They've promised to, but we need to keep the pressure on, make sure it's implemented. But we want to work in coalition with Disability Wales and the race organisations around their conventions and really inform people of women's rights. Another big thing for us is we've realised there's a big gap in terms of caring, and there's no big Wales-wide kind of coalition campaign on caring. So I've been talking to our partners around looking at a caring campaign for the next 5 years, as we need social care to be fairly paid. We need a better childcare offer, and so we're looking into doing some work around that. So watch this space. Finally, I think we've all just been so moved, angered, all the emotions under the sun around the extent of the abuse, the continual abuse online and in nightclubs and on the street of women. And it really kind of came to a head for me when I was rung by a journalist who said, can you find me a woman to talk to who's been sexually harassed on the street? And I just almost laughed in his face, because I thought, there is not one woman in this world that has not had that experience. And it starts when we're young at school, and it goes on and on and on. And you know, we're all absolutely sick of it. And so we've started a conversation with the Violence Against Women organisations to see what kind of gap can WEN fill to really highlight and push this up the agenda, because we really need to change the dial in terms of that harassment and abuse of women. So those are the things you can look forward to us doing. As your members on this call, please do anytime get in touch with any one of us here at Team WEN to talk about ideas and what things you want to take forward and what things are important to you. So yes, that's really all I wanted to say about, I'm going to stop sharing our future priorities. But so I'm going to hand back to Marianne, I think, our new chair at this point.
Thank you very much, Catherine. I think you've thanked all the staff, and I'd like to add my thanks, but I think we'd all, that's Board of Trustees, everybody here and the staff, would like to extend a huge thank you to you for all you've done this year and previous years in growing the organisation. Your leadership has been inspirational. And I speak as a former mentee, not just chair. And I think we've all been touched by that leadership. So thank you very much. The last part, the last part of this AGM is a question and answers for the chair and Catherine, as CEO. I don't see any questions in the box. If anyone wants to unmute and ask a question. I equally understand it's been quite an overpowering and overwhelming 2 and a bit hours. I don't know about anyone else, but I didn't expect to be so moved, so inspired by the range of speakers, and so proud of Welsh women. These feelings are going to hold me up for the rest of the week, if not the rest of the month. I will take up the challenge of Sarah Rees of what I'm going to do going forward, and remind everybody that November the 25th is White Ribbon Day and the start of 16 days of global action against gender-based violence, including harassment, exploitation, abuse, which is the pandemic of our times, not COVID, but gender-based violence, gender and sexual-based violence against women and gender minorities across the world. I will be wearing my white ribbon. I will be talking to people about it, and continue to talk to people about it over the 16 days, which end on Human Rights Day, December the 10th, where we should all consider that's a moment where we reflect on how much more we have to do so that every woman in the world experiences what it's like to have their rights fulfilled. And at the moment, I don't think any of us do, truly. Do we have any more questions? I don't think we have. So on that slightly somber note, I'd like to say thank you very much to everyone. So pleased you could all join us. So what a wonderful birthday party. I hope all of you together in Sports Wales get a chance to cut the cake. And we can only look forward to next year and another birthday and all the fabulous things that WEN will do. So thank you very much and goodbye, everyone.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. This is what I've been wanting to do the whole way through.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us, everyone.